This is the Rich Dad Radio Show. The good news and bad news about money. Here's Robert Kiyosaki.
Hello, and welcome to the Rich Dad Radio Show. I'm Kim Kiyosaki, and I'm hosting today's show. And we are going to have not just an informative show, but a fun show. Many of you know that I'm a woman that knew nothing about money, knew nothing about investing. Started with a little 2-bedroom, 1-bath house, scared to death. Had to come up with $5,000 that I didn't have to buy this $45,000 house back in 1989. And just kept growing and learning and making tons and tons of mistakes. In 2006, I wrote the book Rich Woman. And I wrote that book because as I would travel the world, Robert and I would do seminars all over the world. And I would get up on stage and I'd speak a few minutes to the women. And no matter what city I was in, it could be Sydney, Australia, it could be London, England, it could be Los Angeles. I was always surrounded by women, and they were always asking me the same questions, and they had the same issues. And what I found out is that, unfortunately, more and more women as we get older, due to divorce, due to death of a spouse, due to poor money management, end up in a financial crisis. So I wrote Rich Woman as a wake-up call for women to start taking charge of their finances, taking charge of their money, not just to be financially secure, but to be financially independent. And then later I wrote It's Rising Time. And this was because I saw so many women getting excited about investing, but not taking that first step, not taking that action. And so It's Rising Time was a book to light a fire and to get women into action, which is why I'm so excited about today's show and today's guests, because they are two women that have started a great organization called Investor, INVEST capital HER, investor.com. And they are both empowering and supporting women to have the financial freedom and financial lives that they want, primarily through real estate investing. And we're going to have a fun conversation. We're going to talk about women and money, women and investing. But here was an interesting stat I just learned the other day. It's estimated, it's not hardcore, but it's estimated that today about 30% of real estate investors are women. Now, 20 to 30 years ago, that number was probably more like 5%. And so this show is not just for women. Because if you're a guy and have anything to do in the world of real estate, especially if you're in the business of real estate, lending, brokerage, whatever, I think you're going to want to know the nuances of women investors and what to look for, because the women investors coming up are strong, are powerful, and they are growing in numbers. So today on our show, from Investor, we have Liz Faircloth and we have Andressa Gidelli, I got that right, Gidelli, yes, of investor.com. And I don't want to take up a lot of time talking about you guys. I want you to talk about you guys. So you started Investor, which is an organization for women in real estate, which I love. And that's what we're going to have a lot of fun with. But let me start with you, Liz. Tell me a little bit about your background. How did you get into this? And how did you come to start Investor?
Sure. So got involved in real estate investing itself about 16 years ago in my 20s. And my brother-in-law was getting my degree in social work. I wanted to open my own practice and counsel people and help people from mental illness to emotional issues and just everything.
Well, that comes handy into real estate investing. It does.
And I was very focused on that. I wanted to open my own shingle. I wanted to open my own practice. And then at the same time, simultaneously, my brother-in-law, who was like the only entrepreneur I knew, handed me Rich Dad, Poor Dad and said, "You need to read this." I said, "Okay." I'm like, it's kind of small. And that kind of forever changed my way of thinking about so many different things, from passive income to, and one of the biggest things I learned in that book was the power of sales and the power of being able to sell. So at the same time, I met my now husband, Matt, and had him read it. And we started investing on the side. He quit his job. And then I got a job actually in consulting and sales. So I ended up not getting a job in social work, but getting a job in what I read in the book, and just really importance of being able to enroll and connect. So did that for about a decade while we built our business and built our investing business. And when my husband and I started to diversify markets, we looked into Philadelphia. And just quick story, I saw Andressa's name everywhere in Bigger Pockets forums. And I'm like, I got to reach out to her because she seems active in flipping. So we connected. and became very good friends initially. And then really started a women's group, 4 of us, right, Andressa? Just really supporting each other. And I always was drawn to women for different reasons and supporting women. Even in my corporate days, that's all I wanted to connect with, was helping women. And her and I would come together and be like, where are the other women in this space? We'd go to conferences. There'd be one woman on a panel.
Right,
they were never keynoting. And if they're there, people always assume they were there with their spouse. And we were like, there's got to be more women. And we know there is. And we wanted to create the space for women to have the support and get this give and get support. So we started with a podcast, and that led into a variety of ways where we really help women online and offline platforms to empower them to live a financially free and balanced life. So that's the little long and short of where I came from. And, and multifamily is my focus in terms of investing itself.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thanks, Liz. And Andressa, you were from Brazil?
Yes, I am. I came to the US in 2008. Now I know a single person here. I started a master's degree in professional business communication. The goal was to go back to Brazil, find a corporate job and work there, I guess. Right.
That was my goal too.
Yeah. But then I said, listen, I never worked in sales before. I don't want to be a salesperson. That's farther from what I want to be, but I don't have sales experience. So while I'm here, let me do internship in sales. So I chose door-to-door sales.
Good for you. Wow.
I don't think I was aware.
Great training. What's what great training. How was that?
Amazing training. One of them, I think I should have invested all that money into door-to-door sales, not have spent so much into a master's degree. But anyway, cannot complain. It was great. But here's the kicker. In one of those meetings with my manager, I said, listen, please share a sales book, because if I make more money, my team makes more money, you make more money. And then he passed this tiny purple book across the table. And he said to me, you're going to read this book over here because you are a true entrepreneur and you need to read this. And I was like, what is this? What is real estate? I didn't understand the concept. To me, only rich, wealthy people own real estate, multiple, right? You're very lucky if you own your own house, and then but there was no concept of cash flow or anything like that. So I started from the zero. I read the book in a weekend, and then I came to him on Monday, and I said, what the hell is going on over here? Why nobody knows about all this stuff? Who are those people? I want to be part of this world. So of course, I start researching about you and Robert, and I came across the 3-day event. And my ex-husband at that time was like, listen, we need to get educated on this. I'm big but I want to get to the right education. I'm tired of being an A student. I want to be a C. I want to be a C student from now on. And then we went through the whole program. That's how I met you and Robert. We went to the Rich Dad training, got amazing mentors throughout. And in 6 months, we really studied the market as a palm of our hand. Mm-hmm. And that allowed us to buy a right, our first property, which was our primary. We did a HELOC, but the appraisal came lower, but I knew the market. So gave me the confidence to appeal the report, get a higher appraisal report, pull all that money out and start reinvesting. And then from there, I started doing 1-2 projects at the same time, 15 projects at the same time. Last deal that Liz and I closed was a 670 unit apartment complex, 5 buildings located in 2 different states. So that's how it started.
That's excellent. Excellent. I love it. And congratulations. And here's what I love about the two of you is, we talk about real teachers and fake teachers. So fake teacher, somebody's going to tell you how to buy real estate, but they've never bought real estate, right? But a real teacher is somebody that's doing it every single day. And you're teaching and working with women doing what you guys do every single day. And I think that's extraordinary. Andressa, you mentioned you had self-confidence. Okay. So in talking to all the women I talk to all over the world, that seems to be the number one issue. And I'd like your feedback, both of you, on this, is the self-confidence. Women don't have the self-confidence when it comes to money, much less investing. What do you find and how do you help women to overcome that?
I think the word confidence, right? Liz and I were speaking at a 500 women conference, and it was all realtors or different people that are already in the business. And we assumed they all invest in real estate.
Of course.
Well, you are selling properties, right?
What percent did? What percent of those?
I could count on my fingers.
Wow.
And I only have 10 fingers. So, we were like, what's going on over here? And I started asking questions. I was like, you're a broker. You have a team. You are selling to investors and you are selling at the end too. So you know how much they made. Why are you not investing? She's like,
and they see the deals before anybody else.
Exactly.
Yep.
I was like, what's going on here? There's like a disconnect. And it was confidence. And I was like, what's going on? And here's what I believe it is, the kicker here. Women are masters in figuring things out by ourselves. And we have a lot on our plate. So at the end of the day, we might have a couple of hours, but our energy is so drained that there's nothing left there. And we are always thinking, how can I do this on top of everything else that I have going on in my business? And that answer is like, I just can't do that. So I do believe that we need to unlearn a lot of patterns that we have learned throughout the years. And it was not the long time ago that women were not able to open up a bank account, to own a property. So
that wasn't that long ago.
Right? We're mentally dependent, financially dependent. And this is a very important subject to me beyond just cash flow. I was part of a toxic relationship. And I believe if I was financially dependent at that time, I could have left that relationship much earlier. And I think that many women, especially with the pandemic, are facing that type of situation. So going back to your question, the confidence comes from being part of a tribe, to tapping into other women's resources, because then her resource is my resource. Her experience is now my experience. We can share you share the shortcuts. I think that's the secret. And then you gain the confidence as you go.
I think that's great. And to that point about if you were not financially dependent, I actually wrote about this. I think it was in Rich Woman. There was a study done in Sweden where they asked the question, if you were financially free, would you stay married? 37% said, nope. 37% said, I can't leave because I'm financially dependent. If I wasn't, I would leave. Other countries, it's even higher than that. So it's a really good point. And when you're dependent on somebody else financially, you are basically enslaved. You're basically trapped. You have to follow, this money is such a toxic subject sometimes, and it's a psychotic subject. As Liz, you studied psychology, you would know it's psychotic at times.
Yeah.
So Liz, how do you support women gaining that confidence, overcoming that, what Andres is talking about, that the dependency and not having that knowledge and that confidence?
And and the confidence piece is also very interesting by personality, because there are women who we interview that are very just naturally self-confident. There's men that are self-confident. That's not necessarily male or female, right? It's a personality trait.
Exactly.
Then there's women that are more cautious, right? So I think what ends up happening throughout just society, and I think about my own upbringing, is that if women don't know literally A to Z on something, they feel like they don't know it and they don't want to speak about it. And that it is a common thread that I see a lot of women. So it's like they don't know enough about short-term rentals or investing, so they just don't do it. And so because they don't want to just fake it, if you will. And so what we've done in a lot of ways in our community and the work that we're up to is, number one, on the flip side of all this is that women actually outperform men. Women make great investors. Statistically, not my opinion, but research after research shows that once women do invest, they're the right decisions. They're the right investments because women are more cautious. They're going to be more careful. They're going to be more mindful in their decisions. They don't just do it on a whim because of the reason I just said. There's
a woman I interviewed and we talked about women being risk averse, and she says they're not risk averse, they're risk aware.
Correct.
Aware, they do their homework, they study it, they understand what the risks are before jumping in.
Yeah. And so I once women do, it's like they're going to probably choose the right path and the right approach. So what we do is we kind of put a community in place and a support mechanism in place so that women that are going to do well once they do it, get there, right? And take those initial steps. So that looks in various ways. Number one, it looks through like masterminding, where women can be like, I'm not alone here. I'm dealing with the contractor issue, or what's coming up for me. We had a session last night, Kim, we were working through with some women and some issues. And one of the women said, I just had a tough situation. I don't want to bring that same issue to the next one. I'm really nervous. And we worked it through with her because we're like, you're going to learn, you learn from that. You're not starting at ground zero. You've done a bunch of deals, you know?
So Liz and Andressa, jump in here too. Yeah. What do you say to the woman right now? She's there. She knows she wants to get started. She doesn't know how to, she doesn't have the experience or the knowledge. What do you say to her? She's on her own right now. And she's listening to this going, what do I do?
I would say first own what you do bring to the table. First own who you already are. Without real estate, without money, without anything, like your essence, like you have skills, you have knowledge, and you have a personality sense. Though those things matter in this business, whether it's marketing, whether it's that you've been home with your kiddos for 18 years, you know how to run a household, and that's called project management, which every single construction project is needed, right? Let's be clear. Yeah. That's like the number one skill set. Negotiation, project management is incredibly important in this business. So I would say number one is own who you already are. That's first step. And then we'll talk about other real estate piece.
Go ahead, Andressa.
I'm very practical when it comes down to that, and I don't want to waste time, right? So here's what I would recommend for the women that are listening here. I recommend you attend an investor meetup or any RIA, local RIA, and you're going to find 3 to 5 people that are movers and shakers, and you're going to ask them the specific question. Tell me exactly what you're looking for, your criteria. What type of property, where, the zip code, the square footage, all of it. Hunt for those properties. Get those properties under contract. Get in front of the homeowners, get it under contract, and then shadow the process with those folks. You're going to be learning throughout the time, without paying for your mistakes. Because that's my main thing.
That's a really good point, because there's a lot of different meetup groups. There's a lot of women investment groups, a lot of women business groups. I think one of the things you're saying and so important is that when you're doing it on your own, it's really, really hard because you got all this chatter going on. I was so nervous when I did my first deal and I had all the chatter and people were telling me I was going to lose money, all of that stuff. But if you have a support group, a group of people that have like-minded ambitions and goals and are in the same business, because real estate is a business, makes it a lot easier. And if you have a mentor, Kenny McElroy has been a mentor of mine for real estate for many, many years, our Rich Dad advisor. Very, very important, really important.
100%. And I think I met Kenny a couple of times too. And that the mindset is what is going to bring you the next deal, but it's also what's going to limit you many times, right? So the chatter inside our head, we need to be very aware of that. And I think the awareness, self-development, putting ourselves into a room of people where you're not the smartest one, and getting comfortable being uncomfortable.
Being okay not being the smartest one. So I'm going to hold it at that point. We're going to take a break. We got so much to talk about when we come back. We're going to talk more about women and money. We're going to talk about what men need to know about women investors as they are making up more and more of this market. And then I want to talk to you too about what you see in today's markets and trends that are happening. So we've got a lot to talk about. We'll be right back. Thank you.
What would you do if someone handed you $100,000 right now? Trick question, nobody knows. That's why people are sitting on more cash now than in the past 20 years, according to Bank of America. And with every major index headed to bear territory and the crypto market losing $1 trillion, the Wall Street Journal says the options are shrinking. But that doesn't mean that they're not out there. Because get this, Bloomberg recently asked some financial experts the same question, and they overwhelmingly recommended this particular safe haven asset. It's outpaced the S&P 500 for the last 25 years by a whopping 164% and has the lowest correlation to public equities of nearly any asset class. The market for this asset remains strong even during the inflationary period of the 70s, the 2008 crash, and COVID shutdowns. And for the first time, it's available to retail investors thanks to Masterworks. Although the demand is through the roof, so there is a wait list, but our listeners get a skip ahead at masterworks.art/richdad. That's masterworks.art/richdad. See important Regulation A disclosures at masterworks.io/CD.
Hello and welcome back to the Rich Dad Radio Show. I'm Kim Kiyosaki hosting today's show, and it's a dynamic show with two very special women, Andressa Gidelli and Liz Faircloth, and they are from Investor, INVESTHER.com, doing great work educating women, encouraging women to get financially free via real estate. Let me just say this. You can listen to the Rich Dad Radio Show anytime, anywhere on iTunes or Android and YouTube. And please leave us a review whenever you listen. We love to get your feedback. That's how we improve our show. So thank you for all listening. So there's so much to talk about. I want to get to really the purpose behind investing, the purpose behind real estate investing. For me, we talked about this early in the first segment. I hated being dependent on anybody for anything. It was just my nature. I wanted to be free. And I knew how money can either enslave somebody or set them free. I wanted to be free. So when working today with women in real estate, when they come to you, what are they looking for? What's most important to women? I think this is important for men who are involved in the real estate business or involved with a woman who's in real estate. What's most important to them?
Yeah. Number one, living life on their own terms, right? And meaning whatever that means to them. and I think women in today, I can't speak for all women, but I can certainly speak for the women that we've talked to in hundreds and hundreds of women. And what ends up happening is they're wearing a lot of hats, they're getting pulled in a lot of directions. Yep. They're the masters of a lot of roles in their life. And in a lot of ways, especially from a professional sense, they want achievement. They want to really make something of their life and their financial wherewithal. They also don't want to be enslaved by it. So they can choose to go bring one of their kiddos to soccer practice or pick them up from school or choose what they want to do. Go get their nails done or have coffee with a friend. Not that we all have time for all that all the time, but you want more balance, right? And you don't want financial freedom at the cost of your health or your life. And so Andressa and I were on that journey, and we're on that journey with everyone. And so when you think about women today, especially since COVID, talk about priorities being like re-engaged, right? We want freedom. We want flexibility. We want to kind of do what we want when we want to do it. Yeah. And also really take care of the people in our lives that we care about. So that's pretty important for a lot of women. And whether that's the older generation, whether that's the younger generation, or whether that's just obviously self-care, right? Number one. So real estate, whether it's through short-term rentals, whether it's through flipping, whether it's just building your portfolio, creates that freedom, right? Creates another way to create not just the wealth, but active income. Right. And so, I love the EBIS, quadrant that you guys talk about, cash flow quadrant. And it's really, how do you create more of the B and the I, more of your business and your investing side of the business? And so a lot of women want that. They just, how do I do that through real estate?
And to that point, you bring up a really good point too. Every single property should be handled as a business. And I talk to a lot of women, they kind of look at real estate investing as a hobby. I'm just going to buy one property or two properties. Every property should be treated as a business. You've got income, you expense, you've got debt, you've got cash flow, hopefully positive cash flow if you do a good job. So I think that helps the business mind of a woman as well. This is not a hobby. This is a business. And that's important. You got to treat your money as a business. So, Andressa, let me ask you too. You're going to say something else, but I'm going to jump in. You can say both things. You talked about that women were better investors than men. It's been in studies. And I know this is a general thing because money doesn't care if you're male or female. Money just cares about how smart you are with it. So I don't want to get into men and women are better or worse, but there are some characteristics that make women very good investors.
Absolutely. And you guys can fight with Fidelity Investment because they made the research showing that women is showing a higher return on investment when compared side by side. But we're not in a game on saying, oh, we're better or worse. Doesn't matter. What we really care is the stereotype, right? Breaking down the stereotype that when women that women don't invest. We do, consciously we do. And many of them are under the radar, meaning we are not showing off our car or like checks on our social media. I want to flex to everybody that I can and I am able to pick up and drop off my son at 3 p.m. every single day because I have freedom of time. And that is my main goal. I think a lot of women invest in real estate because of the freedom of time and the legacy they're going to live to the next generation. So they're conscious. They're not fearful. They're conscious about it. And the dynamic really shifts, right? When we are the only women in the room, very often, right?
Yep.
We like to ask questions.
Yes.
We're
not afraid to not know the answer, especially when it comes to money, because we're not expected to know anything about money, right?
Exactly. And I think that the perception many times is like, oh, so you don't know that? Well, no, that's why I'm asking. And I'm okay doing that, right? But I think there's a lot of...
I've told the story about, asking a real estate broker, he's talking about a cap rate. And I'm like, okay, so
yes.
how do you get to a cap rate? How do you calculate a cap rate? And he's like, oh, well, if it's higher, it's better. If it's lower, it's worse. I'm like, no, that's not what I'm asking.
Right. It happened with me.
Yeah.
I'm involved in construction, right? That's what I really like to do on my quote unquote spare time. But I really like to do that. And I will dissect the estimate. Don't come to me with a lump sum. That's not going to work, right? And in one of those interactions, I look at the drywall pricing and I was like, I'm curious, how did you come up with this number? And then the GC was like, well, I have 30 years of experience. I was like, wait, hold on a second. Maybe it's my accent, but I did not ask. How many years of experience do you have? More specifically, I want to ask, based on the size of the drywall sheet and the size of this house, I already did the math over here in my head and it's not adding up. So break it down for me. Well, I guess I need to come back to you on that. Yeah. Yes, you do.
So back to the Fidelity study that said women were better. So is it that we're more, as we said earlier, risk aware? We do our homework?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. So it's not that the study was evaluating how quick women make decisions. We need more information and data in order to make the decisions. Once we make the decisions, it's a long-term decision, and at the end, it's higher return.
It's a long-term decision. It's a long-term, not a short-term. Yes.
No. So it's not that women are indecisive or emotionally using the emotion is holding them back. Quite opposite. They idealize the emotion to say, okay, let me look at all the numbers. Let me ask all the questions.
Which any real estate investor should do. Sometimes right. I see ego gets in the way. Sometimes I see ego gets in the way, and they're just going to kind of.
What are you talking about, Kim? Ego.
This applies to women too. Women have egos. I see it more in men though, and they are oftentimes, as you said. I think it's a key point. Women are not afraid to ask questions. Women are not afraid to say I don't know, because they want to learn and they want to be better and they want to succeed. So I think that's really important.
Yeah. And I would say that that's also why we started with one meetup and we have 54 meetups. Because some people say, why do you even exist? Why is there even necessary to have a women's community? In this day and age, we get asked that. We get that asked a lot, actually, by women and men, not just men. And what's interesting is that with investor meetups, they do like to ask questions. They also want to be in a safe environment to do so. They want, and I think that's important. People are like, safe, what's the big deal? Well, you're in a room and you ask a question and you don't don't even get like the answer.
Right,
it makes you feel less confident, right? So you don't go up the confidence scale, you go down the confidence scale. So when we put meetups in place, we start with a Philadelphia meetup, and we just saw women really coming into their own. They're like, I want to do this. And their confidence just started coming out. It was like so cool to see it in real time with your eyes. We just said, okay, we got to get meetups everywhere. So women have small communities to go to and get the support locally, not just globally, locally. Right. Who's the handyman in Chicago or in Illinois, wherever, and they know who to go to. So I think but the question asking, they ask them, but they also want a safe environment to do so. And that's also absolutely. What we hold.
Which brings me to another point. And I haven't yet mentioned, I'm actually speaking at your conference. I haven't mentioned that. Yes, in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Yes.
Yes, June 23rd and 24th.
I'm so excited. To be
Investor
there.
Con. Yeah.
Yes. So we'll put something on the screen and let people know about it. But you bring up another point, Liz, is that women get excited. And here's one thing I've seen. I don't have necessarily the answer for this. They get very excited, but maybe their spouse is not so excited, or their spouse is intimidated or gets defensive if the woman starts asking about money. Mm-hmm. What do you see and how do you handle that? Or how do you recommend a woman handles that?
Well, and it goes both ways. I think handling it is on both ends, because I've seen men say the same thing to us. Like, how do I handle it? My spouse, in whatever relationship you're in, the one's interested, one's not. Yes. I think there's two ways, because I've worked with my husband for 16 years. So, we've worked part-time, full-time, all kinds of ways. So
that's a plus and a minus. Right there. I know, absolutely. Sure.
It absolutely has been. And what I can say is there's usually two paths, right? You're either going to actually work together. That's one path, or you just need to be on the same page. Because when it comes to finances, someone should be going to buy a rental property and the other person doesn't know about it. That doesn't seem like a good idea. No. So the enrollment of things is often really helpful. We had a great session through our Strive membership. It was really neat, where we had all of our members invite their spouses, and we just did like a kind of like happy hour-ish thing. And my husband and I spoke, but our members came and brought their spouses if they had one or wanted to, or whomever's in their life that way. And we just started to get really real and talk about challenges, because it's not roses and sunshine. But either way, I think the enrollment process is the exposure. So certainly exposing your partner to a podcast, to real, like, as you said, real teachers, not Aunt Sally or Uncle Jim or whomever thinks because the interest rates are rising and there might be a recession, this is the worst time to invest in real estate. Don't take advice from them. They're not investing. Talk to people who are investing. I mean, crazy idea, right? So we have to make sure we give those examples to folks so they can get the support. And I was giving suggestions, and my husband was, and it's neat, right? You can go down that path, but the exposure is everything to the right people, right. Teaching information that's useful in today's economy.
So I want to get into what you're seeing today. And Liz, you mentioned, interest rates going up. Interest rates are still really cheap.
Exactly.
I mean, when I started investing, interest rates were at like 12, 13, 14%. Right. And we were still cash flowing. So when people say, the interest rates are going up, it's not a good time. It's like, that's nonsense. If you can find a property that cash flows and makes sense, go for it. So tell me, I'm going to start with you, Andressa. Tell me what you see today, given today's market, which this world is crazy right now and things are so out of control, but there's still, as I say, I can't control the US economy. I can't control the global economy, but I can control my own personal economy. So tell me what you see happening today. What's happening in the markets? What trends do you see coming on board?
I like the concept of a sniper, right? I can see all the movement happening, and I am going to shoot when I am 100% certain there. This is not the time to pray that all the numbers work, that all the good stuff, if nothing happens during the construction period or refinance, I should be okay at the end. Well, not a good deal. So I will take a step back, and then I invite everybody to take a deep breath, right? Because we're seeing a lot of things, and be extremely clear. What are your criteria in terms of what is your market or market that you're looking to invest? What's going on there? Is it growing? Who are the employers in that market? And your personal criteria. What are you looking for? Do you recommend,
do you suggest that people go to that market and spend time in that market to get to know it?
100%. Yeah. 100%.
I hear so many people wanting to invest in cities they've never even been to. I'm like, why would you do that?
Go for it, but I wouldn't, right? I am the type that I want to walk. I want to walk. I want to talk to, I want to stop at the coffee shop, chat with Johnny that has been there for 50 years. What's going on over here? And is there a trend going on? Oh, I see 3 blocks that way, still in development, but look at here. They're building new construction over here. I want to follow the path, right? I don't need to invent the wheel, but going back, it's the State of the Union. What is your criteria? Knowing the market, as I mentioned, I got started by knowing the market. If you know the market, if you start the market, when you see a deal, you shoot. You won't, and you will cash flow because you already know that. But I think that right now we can say the US as a whole, right? We have different cycles going on in different areas. So anything that we are saying to you guys here, it might be a completely Philadelphia and LA different markets.
Totally different. Yep.
Right? Kentucky, we are talking different numbers. So you got to look at your local economy be an
expert in your own backyard where you're going to invest. I think that's great. And, I also stay away from all the noise out there. It's like they say, Phoenix prices have gone up tremendously, and they have. But compared to other markets, it's still relatively inexpensive. It's expensive for if you're a Phoenician and going to live here for the rest of your life. But given the rest of the market, it's not as it's not as expensive as the media makes it sound. So what are you seeing, Liz?
I'm seeing that like the sub secondary markets have always been markets we've been thriving in, meaning, you take North Carolina, overall growing market, right? State that's people, jobs are going there. And it's like, sometimes people do too much market analysis. Like, where are people going? People follow jobs. Where are businesses going? I mean, so, and you start to want to watch that, but Raleigh, Durham, these are two, pretty large communities, obviously cities in North Carolina. Winston-Salem's kind of like a sub-market, not quite as hot, but it was a growing market. So during COVID, we bought our first building there. And what was interesting there is that, the Raleigh and the Durhams were getting overheated, right? So in every community, there's like the hot market. Then there's like secondary markets that are not super small. They're smaller, but they're up and coming. People are going there because they can't afford to live over there anymore. And that's everywhere. It's not unique to North Carolina. Winston-Salem, I'm just going to give you an example. With interest rates going up, you want to see, are you buying in a market that the rents are going up? Because that's going to, they're going to increase together, right? If you're in an area that the rents aren't going up, interest rates are going to kill that deal because they're not, both going up. We've been able to raise rent 7 times in a year and a half. Or 2 years since COVID, right? That's significant. I mean, we've owned properties in the Northeast. I can't tell you that we've been able to do that, right? The market wouldn't bear it, right?
Yes.
Different. So I just say that you have to be in a market that's growing. You have to be in a market that people want to be in, and especially post-COVID, and also be in an area that's kind of now I'll also say that North Carolina prices have gone up since us buying there. So what's interesting there is that now what used to be, $85,000, $100 a door, in terms of larger multi, now it's trending higher, right? So now the word's out, right? So now that's, as an investor, what's the next market that we could start to look at? Because now this is overdone, right? Now, because now we're going to be paying the expensive prices. We don't want to do that. So,
and I like the submarkets. And you just said trending and trends since COVID. I mean, COVID has opened up a lot of trends in some negative ways, but there's a lot of positive trends that are happening that people can jump on to. People are all working from home. People want things delivered. People want senior housing. That hasn't changed. That these baby boomers are still aging and needing. So what trends do you see coming up out of COVID?
I think one thing that I would certainly say, and I'm not talking just for larger apartments, but I'm talking about the single family house, right? As you mentioned, Kim, every single property should be treated as a business. And I will add to that, you should, even if that property is a block away from your house, treat that property / business as if it is out of state.
Why is that?
Because otherwise you're going to find yourself another job, right? We don't want to do that. So run the numbers. If it is 100 miles away, they don't need to know who you are. You don't need to unclog toilet or deal with tenants or none of that. It's a business and it needs to run on its own. Our goal is to really fire ourselves for every single position we're in so we can build a legit business and be financially free. Yeah. Excellent.
So to that point, last question is good. We could go on forever. It's got so much to talk about with you guys. And I'm so excited to see you in Charlotte. You mentioned you don't want to be fixing toilets. Property management, key to the success of any real estate property. Any suggestions, advice to finding great property managers?
Yeah, I would say they need to be experts in three things. They need to be expert in the market that you're looking in. They need to know that market. Oh, I know North Carolina. That's great. Do you know Winston-Salem? It's a different market than another area of that market. Just give you, example. They need to be experts in the city and the community that you're looking in. So that's number one. They also need to have assets under management in that area. Unless they're really, really, really seasoned, that they're kind of they're expanding, and there's a good reason for that. But I like to see that they have experience in the local market. The second thing is you want to see that they have experience in the asset class you're looking in. If you're getting an Airbnb and short-term rentals, and they've been managing single family rentals, long-term rentals, we can do that too. You want really to work with people who have an expertise in the asset class that you're focused on. Third thing, because I'm just sharing the third thing because we got burned on it before when we worked with a property manager, is the type of asset you're buying. You can buy a property that needs a little freshening up. You can buy a property that literally is a gut renovation and it's a whole different ball of wax. Like we buy a lot of workforce housing properties that are complete disasters, interior, exterior, and just needs a complete value add holistically, if you will. Like that's just the kind of projects we've bought historically. Not all property managers can deal with those types of projects because it's the amount of work in this most simplistic way. It's the amount of work that needs to happen. You could take a duplex. It's the same thing. If it needs like a tremendous amount of work or less, because if you're out of state, guess who's going to be managing that property for you? Guess who's going to be the boots on the ground for you? They're your eyes and ears, whether they do construction management or not. So those two things have to be really important. Small or large properties, I would say, is that, they're going to sell you that they can do everything. And look at what their fees are. You want to see the contract. You want to know what you're getting charged for from A to Z, because they're not going to, what do you charge for leasing? What do you charge for this? What do you charge to go find that contractor for me? What do you charge? They charge. That's what property managers like to do. It's how they make their money. They're not making it on 6%. They're making it on usually their fees. And that's okay. They need to make money, of course, but you want to know what you're paying upfront.
Exactly. Great advice. Anything you want to add to that, Andressa? Because one thing I've learned, I learned this from Kenny too, when we were looking at property, we went up to Vegas to look for property years ago. We didn't meet with brokers. We met with property managers. And to your point, Liz, property managers that understood that market inside and out and had the key and were experts in the type of property we were looking to buy. They knew everything and they weren't trying to sell us any property because they just wanted to manage whatever we bought. Yep. So they can be a great resource when you're looking to find property.
I'm a true integrator. So I'm looking for KPIs. When are we getting the reports? What should I expect? When should I expect? So I don't have to be chasing anybody for anything. So I'm looking at who's going to be my point of contact if I need to talk about billing or management or whatever. Is it you that I'm talking, or is there a person on the team? I want to meet that person on the team that is going to be handling my account. And then KPIs. What are our criteria for raising rent, dealing with? I'm interested about the process. Do you have a standard operating procedure in place? Are you professional that you're going to be doing that? Because I don't want to be having too many calls to deal with small items that I shouldn't be involved whatsoever.
Well, unfortunately, we're out of time. There's so much we could talk about, but I applaud the two of you. You're doing such a great service. You've got such a gift to give to women and to everybody, not just women, but that I know is your market. But you're a wealth of information. You practice what you preach. You're great teachers and great educators. And again, I'm really excited to be at your event. What's the name of it?
It's called the Real Estate Investor Community, our community. And the event is the Investor Con in Charlotte. InvestorCon, June 23rd and 24th. 5 keynote speakers, more than 20 sessions. We handpick all those women that we know them. We put our hand on the fire for them. Those are real, true leaders.
Perfect. Well, go to investor.com, and I'd love to see all of you at this conference in June. I'm really excited to be there. Thank you for the work you two do. Appreciate it. And we're gonna get together more often.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim.
All right. Take care. We're just going to take a quick break and come back with a wrap up. Welcome back. This is Kim Kiyosaki, and I've had a fun time hosting this show with Liz Faircloth and Andressa Gidelli of investor.com. They're a wealth of information, and they've got so much great wisdom to share. So I've really enjoyed this conversation with them. And, one of the topics we talked about was real estate has kind of been a man's game. And right now, it's about 30, they're estimating about 30% of real estate investors are women, where years ago, women couldn't even buy property without having the guy sign the papers. I mean, that's unheard of. But today, women are making up more and more of the real estate investing world. And it reminded me of a story, and Sarah and I were talking about it. Years ago, we bought this apartment building. Robert and I bought this apartment building, 18 units, small, and it was being run as a short-term rental. So we had, turnover every month, and we had some people that would come every winter for 3 months. They're called snowbirds here in Phoenix. They were coming from the Midwest every year for like 15 years. So we decided to turn it into a long-term rental because the numbers panned out. It was going to be a lot less marketing, a lot less management. And so that's what we were doing. So we had this meeting of all the people that have been coming all these years to stay at the place, and the snowbirds, and we're going to let them know we had a special deal for them if they wanted to keep doing it. We had this presentation, so I'm there, and my dad was visiting. So I said, Dad, why don't you come along and you can see this presentation? So I gave the presentation to all the guests, and afterwards we were having just some drinks and nibbles, and one of the tenants came up to my dad and said, "Oh, you must be so proud of your daughter." And he goes, "Yes, I am. I'm very proud of her." And this tenant said, "Well, what is it like to have her working for you on this property?" And he looks at her and he goes, "I don't own this property. She owns a property." And he was like, "Are you kidding me? She owns the property." And there was like this assumption, and this is 20 years ago, more than that actually. There's an assumption that, he must own the property because she can't own it. Number one, she's too young and she's female. But other than that, I have to say, again, going back to the markets don't care if you're male or female. It's just how smart you are with your money. So I don't like to get into the male versus female, but it's a reality that exists out there. Yeah. And I think women, as Andressa and Liz were saying, I think they are risk aware, and they do their homework, and they want to make sure that their properties are successful. What do you think, Sarah? Yeah. What did you pick up from today's show?
I really appreciated they used a lot of our same language, yes. And I was like, okay, I feel comfortable here. This feels good. I think one of the biggest things is I think it was Liz that mentioned like fear. And that was something, women have a lot to lose, right? Because they're generally raising their families, right. And, there's that fear to like take that step to take care of themselves. And that I bought my own rental property a couple months ago.
Yes, congratulations.
And that was one of the things, like I was sitting back and I'm like, I've read Kenny's books. I've watched a lot of videos. I've heard a lot of horror stories. This opportunity is perfect. The numbers make sense. What is holding me back?
What was it?
It was fear. Fear of failure.
Fear of making mistakes, yep. Fear of losing money.
Fear of losing money. Although it's not a ton of money. For me, I guess it is. But in the end, I was like, so what? So what if I make a mistake?
Yeah.
Really?
You're going to get smarter.
Yeah. And so it was just like, I just had to put that foot forward.
Yeah.
And I feel like for a lot of women, they're smart. They're, like she said, running a household is project management.
That was good. I like that.
I was like, that's so true. So it's just like putting that foot, one foot in front of the other. Just, you've got to just take that step.
Yeah.
And I really feel like that's something that they are encouraging women to do, is just do it.
Yes, I agree.
And they'll support and teach and be there for you along the way. And I thought that was really empowering.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, because every time you're going to do anybody that's going to do their first real estate deal, it's scary. And that fear comes up and you're going to, oh my God, what if I make mistakes? What if I lose money? What if my spouse says, I told you so, or my friends say, I told you so, all the humiliation, all of that.
Right.
So what I love about what Liz and Andressa are doing is they have a group, a community. And I think that's so important. They support one another and they're going to learn from each other. And so there's a lot of communities out there, but I also encourage people to go to investor.com. But yes, that first step, putting that money down, buying that first deal will change your life.
Yep.
Thank you, Sarah.
Yep,
thank you,
thank you.
Liz. Thank you, Andressa. Thank you, all of you, for listening, and go out and have a rich life. Thanks very much.